Between 1764 and 1767, the highlands of Gevaudan and the granite ridges of the Margeride turned into a theater of savage attacks that tore the rhythm from pastoral life. Small mountain hamlets in what are now the departments of Lozère and Haute-Loire relied on transhuman shepherds, communal pastures, and slow parish networks. Roads were rutted, mail came intermittently, and seigneurial justice was thinly enforced. Villagers in places like Saint-Étienne-de-Lugdars, Langogne, and Saunier-d'Anduze passed gossip by hearthlight, and priests, notaries, and chasseurs were the nearest guarantees of order. In late 1764, reports began to arrive. Women and children found bloodied, clothing torn, corpses mauled beyond recognition, dogs shredded, and flocks massacred. Witnesses described a huge dog-like creature with a foaming maw and a bone-crushing bite. Terrified villagers spoke of night screams and fetid tracks frozen in the frost. News crawled slowly to provincial governors and neighboring towns, where rumor fanned into panic. Isolation magnified each atrocity. A single night attack could leave a hamlet bereft of able men and harvest hands. Official power in the countryside was fragile. Local magistrates lacked manpower, gendarmes were scarce, and nobles answered to distant royal authority. So fear slid into superstition, setting the stage for royal intervention, violent reprisals, and widespread dread. In June 1764, the first unmistakable reports arrived. A woman was dragged from her cottage, her throat bitten open. A child was found with its face lacerated and ribs crushed. These were not isolated cruelties, but the start of a pattern spreading across Gevaudan and the Margeride. Over the summer and autumn, villages from Saulgus to Saint-Étienne-de-Lugdars and Langogne recorded victims, often women, children, and shepherds, whose bodies were left stripped, maimed, and drenched in gore. Eyewitness descriptions were vivid and wildly contradictory. Some spoke of a huge wolf-like beast with a broad chest and a greyhound head. Others described a monstrous dog with a foaming maw and a serpent-like tail. A few insisted there were two creatures working together. Tracks in frost and blood-stained tufts of wool offered hard evidence, but human testimony was messy, shaped by shock and grief. Local hunts assembled instantly. Peasants, communal guards, and a few noble chasseurs drove the hills with bloodhounds and muskets. Yet the expeditions failed again and again. Packs of hounds chased sounds into ravines and returned torn and exhausted. Hunters gutted the stinking carcasses of sheep and dogs, but never cornered the killer. Subscribe. Maybe it would have scared the beast off. Each failed pursuit fed the panic. Fields were abandoned at dusk. Mothers clutched infants at night. Parish registers filled with lists of victims. Magistrates logged petitions and wrote urgent letters to the intendant and to courts in Montpellier. Priests delivered sermons that mixed supplication with stark accounts of funerals. Rumor hardened into a public crisis as peasant grief collided with legal anxiety and demands for force. The region's weak institutions buckled under the pressure, driving appeals for military relief and professional hunts that would draw royal attention and escalate the response. Municipal petitions and frantic letters from magistrates poured into Versailles, and by 1765, King Louis XV authorized direct intervention. Professional hunts were organized, and detachments of troops, dragoons, and royal chasseurs were sent into Gevaudan and the Margeride. François Antoine, lieutenant of the royal hunt, led formal battues with packs of large hounds, trained huntsmen, and soldiers, turning village grief into a state operation. Newspapers and Parisian salons turned the savagery into headlines. The Gazette de France and provincial papers ran lurid accounts, while priests at the pulpit and parish registers catalogued a growing list of blood-soaked victims. Naturalists and savants in Paris debated in print whether the killings were the work of Canis lupus, a wolf-dog hybrid, or some exotic predator escaped from a menagerie. Even learned voices reached for supernatural language to explain corpses found with throats ripped and ribs crushed. The hunt spawned a chaotic economy of fear and money. Municipal councils and private landowners posted bounties, trappers and paid piquets roamed the hills, and opportunists presented torn dog and wolf carcasses as proof to collect rewards, igniting accusations of fraud. Amateur chasseurs abandoned fields for paid tracking work, and markets filled with furs, teeth, and bloody trophies offered as evidence. Amid this turmoil, a handful of local figures rose from the ruined valleys into prominence. Jean Chastel, a robust hunter and innkeeper who would soon be named in petitions and testimonies. Perrier and other chasseurs who coordinated battues, and officers under Antoine whose reports went back to Versailles. The royal presence brought weapons and discipline, but it also brought more eyes, more rumor, and mounting pressure that would push the region toward a final, violent confrontation. After 2 exhausting years, the campaign had become a grotesque industry of corpses and controversy. By 1766 and into 1767, battues, organized hunts, led by François Antoine, detachments of dragoons and royal chasseurs, paid piquets, watchmen, and peasants produced dozens of carcasses, wolves, mangled dogs, and sometimes mutilated livestock. Yet no consensus emerged from the autopsies or the reports sent to Versailles. Local surgeons and parish priests recorded victims found with throats ripped, ribs crushed, and skulls caved in. Some coroners called the wounds wolf-like. Others declared them the work of domestic dogs or hybrids. Conflicting sheets of paper, signed and sworn, crossed between Saugu, Langogne, and Saint-Étienne-de-Lugdares and landed on the intendant's desk, steeped in suspicion. The Gazette de France ran lurid dispatches. Municipal journals and reward notices multiplied as mayors and seigneurs hiked bounties to coax hunters. Fraud festered. Opportunists brought rotting carcasses to collect pay, prompting public accusations and bitter testimony in local courts. Parisian naturalists debated whether Canis lupus could bite through the sternum. Local magistrates argued whether one monster or many stalked the Margeride. The royal presence intensified in spring 1767. More musketeers, longer drives, specialized hounds shipped from the royal kennels, and systematic wire snares and pits set in gullies. Villagers hardened into a single, furious front. Men who had fled their fields returned with muskets and pikes. Women barricaded cottages and sharpened scythes. Priests led prayers for deliverance as much as for courage. Jean Chastel, the burly innkeeper and hunter named in petitions, marshaled trackers and hounds from neighboring communes. On the eve of June 19, 1767, the hills around Gevaudan and the granite ridges of the Margeride simmered with armed men, baying dogs, and a savage resolve that promised one final decisive confrontation. On June 19, 1767, at dawn, after a coordinated battue in the beech and chestnut tangle above Saint-Étienne-de-Lugdares, Jean Chastel, a stout innkeeper and local huntsman, confronted a massive animal. Witnesses later said he watched it charge, raised his gun, and fired. The creature staggered and collapsed, its flanks riddled, a foul, blood-slick maw slack and fur matted with gore. Villagers rushed in, women screamed, then cheered. Bells pealed, priests administered last rites to the no longer threatened, and civic officials sent word to the intendant and to Versailles. The menace was slain. Rewards were collected. Records marked the date, 19th of June, 1767, and the Gazette printed triumphal notices. Yet not everyone accepted closure. Surgeons and some royal chasseurs said the carcass looked more like a large wolf or mastiff hybrid than the singular monster that had terrified children. Naturalists in Paris debated skull measurements, and a few neighbors later insisted that subsequent attacks bore the same telltale wounds. The shot brought immediate jubilation and official relief, but it also left an uneasy silence, a fragile peace that quieted bodies but deepened the mystery that would haunt Gevaudan. After Jean Chastel's shot on June 19, 1767, the killings largely ceased and the countryside slowly returned from slaughter to grazing. Though stray reports continued to surface, the crown used the crisis, deploying troops, royal chasseurs led by François Antoine, and publicized rewards to project Louis XV's authority into neglected provinces, showing Versailles could police rural violence. The beast leapt from bulletins and pulpits into folklore, pamphlets, newspapers like the Gazette de France, and later into novels and studies. Modern scholars offer concrete possibilities: Canis lupus, a wolf-dog hybrid, or an escaped exotic from a menagerie. Others treat the affair as a cultural panic amplified by rumor and fraud. Unresolved questions remain: the exact species involved, whether multiple predators stalked Gevaudan, and Jean Chastel's precise role. The episode reshaped regional identity, spawned literary and historiographical debate, and stands as a dark reflection on fear, power, and how stories take hold.